Hello, everyone. So, I got a comment from a lady a little while ago, and it was interesting to me. I don't want to pick her comment apart too deeply, but she reflected some sentiments that I've seen again and again, not only in the comments, but also in a lot of feminist dialogue. And so, I thought I would take a look at that and go over it and go over some of the ideas that came with it because it was interesting. It made me think. So here goes. There's no such thing as gender roles. There never were. Whether male or female, an individual's purpose in life is whatever they desire it to be. End of story. Like most children growing up, I also had dreams of doing something productive with my life. I'm a woman serving full time in the automotive industry, and most of my hobbies involve being outdoors. Everything from shooting guns and fishing to riding my motorcycle or taking a drive in my truck. And I wouldn't trade any of that for a dull and depressing life spent at home doing nothing but mindless household chores that nobody appreciates. My man is a hell of a lot happier with a woman he can share in common interests with, moreover, than one he wouldn't have anything in common with at all. I'm his soulmate and companion, not his personal servant or replacement mommy. LOL. So I don't want to pick on this lady. She seems like she's got a happy relationship with her partner. Great, good on her. Um, I think it's interesting though that she has a number of ideas that she kind of brings forward. One of them is that a housewife is somehow infantilizing her husband, and this is something that I've just heard so many times in feminism. A housewife infantilizes her husband by being servile to him and mommying him, which is interesting. Um, I've been a housewife for several years, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But also this idea that a housewife just sits around the house doing nothing but thankless chores, and that's it. That's all she does. Um, these are a few ideas that I hear in feminism, and I think it's kind of important to take a look at what a housewife actually is, what a housewife actually does, because I think there are a lot of people out there, both on the left and the right side of the political spectrum, who have very inaccurate ideas of what it means to be a housewife. So I think it might be beneficial to maybe clear that up for some of you. The first thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about the fact that conservatives have bizarre ideas about what it means to be a housewife, too. Maybe not bizarre, but unrealistic, fantastical ideas about what it means to be a housewife. I think a lot of conservatives, a lot of people who like the idea of housewives, or I guess are pro housewife, they have this idea that it's this kind of leave it to beaver, very calm, very much on top of things, keeps the house orderly. I watched just recently this. It was this vintage kind of nostalgic video about about the routines of a 1950s housewife, and it's this woman who's performing this routine of what a 1950s housewife would do. And the very first thing I noticed was, well, I did laugh at her a lot, and it wasn't because I was laughing at her. I didn't want to laugh at her. It was clearly this very artistic kind of performance sort of YouTube video, and I mean, it popped up on my feed just as a suggested video, and I mean, it was very artsy and it was very artful, and she clearly put some research into it, but it just didn't line up with my own experience of reality as far as being a housewife at all. And I think a lot of people, they look at that Leave It to Beaver, classic 1950s iconography of the housewife and think, oh, that's what it means to be a housewife, or that's what it's like to be a housewife. Um, which it's not quite. And then you've got the other side of things, the more anti-housewife point of view, where it's like, well, what do? You sit around all day. You have no ambitions. You don't have anything to really do with yourself that's particularly stimulating, and you do thankless chores all day. And of course, you also infantilize your husband by doing everything for him so that he's taken care of and mommied by someone. And that's also just completely inaccurate. So perhaps it would help if I told you what my experiences as a housewife have been, and also just what it is that housewives do all day. Now, the very first thing that I've noticed about housewives, housewives who are just housewives, they don't have any kids at home. The first thing I noticed about a lot of them, especially the housewife kind of lifestyle promoters, the women who are housewives and who post on social media about being housewives and talk about being housewives and kind of have that very trad wife vibe going for them, where they kind of retool their lives to look very 1950s esque. Um, these women have extensive hobbies. They are very busy and very active. It's not just, oh, it's been a busy day cleaning the house and I did some light exercises and I made dinner and I had it on the table promptly at this time. Like, there are those people, which is a bit much, honestly, but they're also on social media posting about their philosophy on life and their thoughts about being a housewife. Some of them have like seamstress businesses on the side. That's going to be like bringing in money for the family and also keeping them busy so they're not idle. I know one woman who is just a housewife, and that's all she does. And honestly, I don't understand her, and I don't understand how she does it, honestly, because she doesn't seem to have any hobbies. She doesn't seem to have any goals or ambitions. She just sits around the house and sometimes does laundry and sometimes cooks food, and her life seems remarkably empty and hollow. And I look at some of her habits, you might say, her shopping habits, and I think sometimes that she shops a lot just to fill the emptiness in her life. And that's the only just housewife that I know. Now, I did spend a little bit of time, very briefly before we had kids, being just a housewife, and it was really not my cup of tea. I couldn't do it. I really couldn't. I tried quitting dancing because I knew my husband wanted that, and we were trying to move in with my in-laws at the time because we looked at it and was like, we can save up money for the down payment of the house on a house because we want to eventually get a house. We were very very young at the time, and so that was a big and ambitious goal. And we looked at it and was like, well, they have an apartment on their property, like an empty apartment on their property. We'll just move in there. We'll stay there for a little while. Yeah, it will be really cramped because it wasn't a large apartment at all. Like, I'm a tiny house kind of gal. I'm a small space kind of gal. This was a micro space, but we stayed there for a while. And you know, I wasn't able to get to work. Like, work was way too far away. I couldn't go to the strip club. My husband kind of wanted me to quit working at the strip club anyway, so I figured, well, I'll try that out. And I got a bunch of scrap lumber that my in laws had lying around their property, and I built a chicken coop. I bought a flock of chickens. I started tending to them. I tried to plant a garden. I'm not good at growing things. This right here, this is all my husband's work. I'm not good at growing things. I killed the garden very very quickly. But the chickens, I'm really glad that I'm much better with livestock than I am with green things, or there would be a trail of dead poultry in my wake. The chickens did fine, but I got so bored because we didn't have a house to clean. We had this mini micro apartment, so there wasn't any cleaning to do. Cooking was a little difficult because there wasn't a kitchen there, so I was like sharing a kitchen with my in-laws, and there just wasn't anything to do. And maybe if we had land of our own, I could have maybe if we had a little bit of money and I could have invested in starting like planting some trees, some fruit trees, and maybe really, really doing the gardening thing a little bit more wholeheartedly. Maybe that would have helped. Maybe if we had more livestock. I don't know. I remember that I was quite miserable, and there got to be a point where, I mean, I love my in-laws. They're excellent in-laws. They're wonderful people, and I'm really happy to have them in my family, but they're still in-laws. And so eventually we got to this point where it was like, this isn't working out for any of us. We're not really achieving any of the goals that we had in mind when we first came here. And so we moved off their property back into an apartment. And the apartment that we got was very close to the strip club, so I was able to go back to work right away, which made me very happy. Um, I got really antsy at my in law's place also because I just couldn't get the kind of exercise that I was used to. And my body was really, at that point, it had been years of dancing. And so my body was just, it was geared toward exercise. And so I remember I got to a point where they have these really tall trees in their yard that don't have any like side branches coming out of them. They're just like these long, tall, like excellent logging trees. They're just big, straight, tall trees. And I remember I would get really, really restless, and finally I just started climbing straight up the trees. Like, there weren't any branches to hold on to, there were no handholds. I would just climb straight up the trees because I needed to burn some energy and I didn't have anything else that I could do. So yeah, housewife, just straight housewife. I was bored out of my mind and I was very unhappy. Now, I ended up being a housewife after that, and I've been a housewife, just a housewife for the last 5 years now. 5 years. It's been half a decade of pure, unadulterated housewifery. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. I get weird with that. Like, I know it's called midwifery, and that just sounds really strange to me. I never got that. Anyway, um, yeah, I've been a housewife for the last 5 years, and here's how that happened. Because a lot of people look at it and say, some women might want that kind of a life, but not me. Like, I like having a job. I like having a career. I like having ambition, goals, things to do with my life, mental stimulation, like all these things that people attribute to not being a housewife. Um, we had kids. Now, I had a career and I loved my career. I know a lot of people watching my videos don't like my career, and I really don't care. Like, I liked my career, so what does it matter if you liked my career or not? You didn't have to live with my life decisions. I had to live with my life decisions. I had to live the life that I picked, and I picked the life that I wanted to live. And I was extremely happy. Like, I loved what my job did to me physically. Like, I'm not talking about the sex stuff. I'm talking about just the level of health, the level of athletic, just everything. It was so good. My body always felt so good for years of my life. I just felt fantastic. And it was really fun performing. Like, I know there were the guys who just wanted to stare at my crotch or my boobs all day. I get that. Like, I understand that's why a lot of guys come into strip clubs. But there were people who actually seemed to really enjoy a lot of the acrobatic stuff. And I would go and talk with them, and I tell them about how I learned how to do some of the things I learned how to do, and they were excited about it because they thought it was interesting, and I was excited about it because I loved doing it, and I had a great time. Like, I liked my job. I didn't want to give up my job. And after we had our first kid, I was able to continue working my job. And at the time, I was like, this is the perfect job. I pick my own hours. I can come in late if I want to. I can kind of come in whenever I want to. I work, a set number of hours, and then I just pack up and go home. It's a night shift, so I pack my daughter into, I get my daughter tucked into bed. She's asleep. Everything's good. I run over to the club. I work a shift. I grab as much money as I can, and then I head home and I get some sleep. And, little babies, they sleep a lot. So she was, sleeping enough that I could get a decent chunk of sleep in before she woke up in the morning. And then I could stay at home all day long and do the mom thing and do the stay at home mom thing. And it was perfect, right? And then we had a second baby. And the way we did it, we wanted to have our children very close together so that they would all be developmentally kind of on a similar page. And we managed to do that wonderfully with our first set of kids. Like, we had baby number one, we waited for a few months because you should wait a little while in between babies, and then we got pregnant right away because we could just plan our. When I was younger, these days it takes like literally years to get pregnant for me. When I was in my 20s, we could schedule our pregnancies to roughly within a month. So we got pregnant exactly when we wanted to, and we had baby number two roughly a year after baby number one. And everything was perfect except I was a new mom. I didn't have a whole lot of experience with small children or infants. I didn't have family members with small children or infants growing up, so it was all very, very new for me. And two children, one of them who's just learning to toddle along because she's 1 year old, she's just learning to walk, and the other one who is a brand new newborn. That's a lot to take on when you don't actually have any idea what you're doing. Like, I mean, I read up on it. I read a lot on parenting before I had kids and after I had kids, and I still read up of stuff on parenting and how to be a good parent. Um, but that didn't, there's knowing something in theory and there's knowing something in practice, and you become painfully aware of that difference when you have small children and you don't want to mess their lives up. And so it was a little bit difficult to take care of two very, very small children and go to the club and work a shift and do lots of physically very challenging acrobatic stuff. My husband came to me and he said, I think it's time that you start thinking about maybe giving up the job. And I didn't want to. I wanted to hold on to the job forever, but it wasn't realistic for multiple different reasons. I wasn't earning as much. I wasn't looking as young and tight and fresh as I used to before I gave birth to, small babies. I wasn't keeping up, and it was too much. It was too much to hold on to my job and be a mom, like a real honest to God devoted mother to our two small children. Like, you know, I could have half-assed it, but kids aren't something you should half-ass. Like, you make enough of mistakes as a parent whole-assing it. So I just I looked at it, I was like, okay, and so I gave up my job, and that was really unnerving to me because I had been fed the same. Oh, that sound, I don't know if the camera's picking it up. That sound is my husband bringing me food. I'm taking a break. I'll talk to you guys in a minute. I'm back. Yeah, I had been fed this same kind of feminist idea of needing to have a job, needing to be productive, a productive cog in the wheels of society, and I really felt like I was failing when I stopped doing that. Even though a lot of people looked at my job and thought I was just a piece of human garbage for doing a job like that, it still earned money, and I still got to bring home money as a result of the work that I did. And suddenly that was gone. And that kind of positive feedback was just, it was gone. And I coped. I tried to keep the kids happy. I raised the kids for a while. We were living in an apartment for just a little while, and then we moved to this house, which is considerably bigger. And there's a yard, so we have like actual property where I could build a chicken coop. I built this humongous chicken coop. I'm actually kind of proud that I built it almost entirely by myself. I did toward the end. I got a little bit of help. I was like putting the roof on all by myself, and it was huge. So I was standing on a ladder. I was balanced on this stupid ladder. I was putting the roof on. Finally, it was like, I give up. I'm done being independent. Just hold the other side of the metal sheet so that I can nail it into place because I can't reach it. I was like literally reaching up to nail it into place. It was a mess. So I built that, and I've built a few other little random things around the house. I built a table and a set of chairs. I built a cat patio, which is what's keeping them coming and going right now. Um, I kept busy. Um, then we had a third kid, and then I was really busy. The thing about being a housewife that I think nobody has accurately captured, and this is something that I see in the very pro housewife nostalgia for the 1950s, where she's like serving dinner promptly at 5 or 5:30 or whatever, and she's doing housework around the house and vacuuming, and she freshens up her makeup when she knows that her husband's coming home and all that wonderful stuff. That's a fantasy. It's a very pretty fantasy. It's a very cute fantasy. But it's a fantasy, and the idea that I'm in any way infantilizing or babying my husband is also sadly a fantasy. The reality is I'm too busy babying our three small children. We eat more food, we make more dishes. It's not a dish for my husband and a dish for me at mealtime. Is a dish for my husband, a dish for me, a dish for one kid, two kid, three kid, and they eat their food more quickly because I give them small servings, or they'll just throw away a bunch of food. And so they'll eat their food really quickly and then they'll ask me for more. So I spend meal times on my feet, literally running over, pouring food onto their plates, running to the next kid, pouring food onto their plates, running to the next kid, pouring food onto their plates. My husband eventually developed a system where I could sit down, but I have to constantly be reaching across the table to pour food into their plates. Um, it never stops. Now, because we have three kids and soon we'll eventually have four kids, we are trying to teach them to be independent, because the more independent each individual child is, number one, that's just a good thing. It's healthy for them, I think, to be independent in life. But also, the more independent they are, the less I'm going to have to drop what I'm doing to run to the next kid who needs something, which is something that I have to do quite a lot. Like when you have many kids, and many could just be two, but many in this case is three. And I know there are people out there with like 8 kids who are probably kind of scoffing at this, but bear with me. Um, you get very used to saying, you hold on, I'm doing this thing over here. Oh no, you've got to wait for a little while. I'm going to be over here. There's kind of a level of priorities to the things that I'm putting out fires on. If a kid is really really messy, either they've had a very messy meal and they're not going to sit at the table any longer, so I need to clean them off, or somebody's having a diaper blowout, because that's a thing that happens. I have to drop everything else I'm doing and run to stop them from smearing any number of liquids across the house. Um, Either sticky liquids or extremely stinky liquids. It doesn't really matter. They don't belong everywhere in the house. Um, there's a lot of laundry to do. There's 5 people's worth of laundry. There's 5 people's worth of dinner to cook. There's 5 people's worth of dishes to do. There's one kid gets homework. The other one's going to be getting homework next year. Year after that, all 3 of them are going to be in school, and so is going to be me and the baby. If this pregnancy goes well, which so far it seems to be. Fingers crossed. I lost the last 2, so it's like really fingers crossed. But yeah, like it's a job. Like it's an actual job. And I know that people look at it and say, well, it's menial and thankless. And it's like, yes, it's extremely menial and thankless. After the kids finish a meal, because they're still small kids, like small kids, and they don't always have the proper handle on the idea of eating with a spoon or a fork, there's food all over the table. There's a glass of milk or water or whatever they were drinking, that's gotten overturned and spilled all across the table, along with all the food that's like scattered all over the table, and gone dripping off of the table and poured all over the chairs, and then from the chairs it poured all over the floor. So the floor is covered in food and bits of whatever it was the kids were drinking, and little puddles of just mess. And I wash all the kids off. They're getting to the age where they can wash themselves off, but the littlest one still needs help. I get them all cleaned up so that they're not tracking food and sticky fingerprints everywhere. I send them all over to the living room, and then I have to clean that up. And yes, it's menial, and yes, it's boring, and yes, it's thankless, but somebody has to do it. And we have 3 options on that somebody. It can be me, or it can be my husband, or it can be somebody that we pay to do it. Because no matter what, they're small children that they need to eat and they're very messy. So one of those three options has to happen. It doesn't make much sense for my husband to do it because he works very, very hard to earn enough money to feed a family of five. And so he's busy all day, Monday through Friday, and on weekends he works side jobs. Like he's always working. I see him at nighttime taking phone calls with clients for he's doing a startup company with some other guys. He's never not working. Like he's exhausted and he's never not working, and he does this because it puts a roof over our heads, it puts food in our bellies, it puts clothes on our backs. He never stops working. And so then you have two options left. Either I could do it or we could hire someone to do it. Now, if we hire someone to do it, we'd have to use his money because I don't have a job. And I can't exactly go out and get a job because I don't have a resume. What do I say? Housewife for the last decade? Yeah, I could say that. I've actually sent out my resume a couple times because now that with COVID, he's working from home, so I can technically get a job. How many people do you think are going to hire me in this job market with as many people as there are scrambling around for jobs, desperately trying to find any kind of work they can get? And then I come up, I'm pregnant, which technically they shouldn't discriminate, but let's be realistic. And I have no work history. I wouldn't hire me. So, I mean, why should I expect someone else to? Which means that it's not like I can go out and get a job and hire someone else to do the menial tasks of cooking and cleaning and tending to my small children. And honestly, I think it's important that I, as a parent to my small children, as a biological parent, that I should perhaps be present in their lives and let them know on a very regular daily basis, just if in no other way than in the mere fact of my presence in their lives, that I love them. You know, as annoying as it is, as dull and as menial as it is, as below my intellectual capabilities and my, as far down below my level of towering ambition and ego as it might be, they know that they can go into the next room of the house, and they usually do that while calling very loudly, Mom, like loudly. They'll go walking across the house, and there I am. And I might be busy with something, and I might not be able to help them right away, but I'll listen to them. And as soon as I have a free moment, as soon as I finish whatever it was I was doing when they came into the room, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll go and help them with whatever their problem is. Maybe, he stole my toy. Okay, well, that's important to them. Maybe it's I stubbed my toe and it hurts. Maybe it's I'm starting to feel hungry and I need food. Maybe it's just I want to tell you about this thing that I did at school that was interesting. Like just this evening I was sitting in the bathroom, and I've been trying very hard to close the door and lock the door to the bathroom when I go to the bathroom, because the kids are all old enough that nothing fatal is likely to happen while the door is closed for me to go to the bathroom. Like when they're babies, you worry about that sort of thing. When they're a little older, you don't worry about it as much. And somebody started crying, and they went and stood outside the bathroom door just wailing and crying. So finally I, unlocked the door and opened it just a little tiny bit and peeked out. I mean, I was sitting on the toilet because the toilet's right next to the door, and I'm peeking out and they're crying, and in no time flat the other two kids were right there. They just came running up to the door. One of them bounded up to the door, pushed it open a little ways, jumped into the bathroom, and it was standing in the doorway of the bathroom talking a mile a minute about how today she got to hold a hedgehog for the first time. She's fascinated with hedgehogs. I was like, oh, I didn't know that happened. Like, she didn't tell me when I was driving her home from school. She told me, at roughly 5:30 in the evening when I was sitting on the toilet. But she was absolutely thrilled. She was like, they're just like you told me. They were a little prickly, and they're cute, and they're tiny, and I got to pet it, and it was like, she's just talking and talking and talking, and it's like, I think at some point, after a few sentences, when I realized she wasn't slowing down and the other one wasn't dying from something that was causing him to cry, and the third one was just there because she wanted my attention, I kind of shooed them all out of the bathroom and told them that whatever it was, I could handle it as soon as I was done. I shut the door and locked it again. Because privacy is a rare blessing when you have small children. And I want to savor it while I can because there's a fourth one on the way, and everything gets turned upside down again after that. But yeah, it's a job. It's definitely a job. You're definitely working. Um, am I really catering to my husband hand and foot? Not the way people think that housewives cater their husbands hand and foot. Um, I try to be good to him, and I do what I can. I'm not. I feel at a disadvantage when it comes to being a good housewife because my parents were very career oriented. That was their value system, like education and then career. That was what they wanted from me, and so that was what they taught me to value. My mom hated housework, and she didn't teach me to love housework or to really understand how to do housework. And so that's something that I had to kind of piece together on my own, after getting married. Because I mean, you can do housework when it's you and another adult very, very easily. It's like, okay, you vacuum the floor. Okay, did that? Okay, done. You wash the dishes. Well, there's only a couple dishes, so you're done. Maybe you clean the bathroom, you scrub the toilets, you scrub the shower, and you're done. Like what all do you really have to do? Like you can keep yourself busy cleaning. You can do a deep clean of the house as regularly as you want to, but it's not difficult to keep it clean. Throw in a few kids. See what happens. There's toys everywhere. and, and they're getting to the age now where I don't just run through the house picking up the toys anymore because that would be too easy. Nowadays, what I do is I sit next to the pile of toys and I don't do anything. I just sit there and I coach them on how to pick up the toys and put them away. Like they'll trash the room, so I'll be doing dishes. It will take me a few minutes to do the dishes. I'll turn around, I'll come into the living room because they know that when I'm doing dishes or cleaning in the kitchen, I really prefer them not to be underfoot. So they'll be in the living room, they'll be playing, they'll be entertaining themselves, they're happy, everything's good. I finish with the dishes, I come into the living room, and the entire room has been completely destroyed. Doesn't matter that I just finished cleaning it and putting the couch cushions on the couch just so, like, I have decorative pillows. I love decorative pillows, like, way more than I probably should, and I have them all nicely arranged on the couch, and the room is clean, and the floor is clean, and there's nothing on it, and everything's nice, and oh no. No, no. 10 minutes, and they've gone and filled the room up with toys and wrecked everything and pulled all the cushions off the couch, and everything's a mess. And I can't just clean that up, which would be exhausting enough as it is. But no, instead, I sit down in the middle of the room. I tell them that they need to clean it up. They tell me that's impossible because it's just too messy. And so I have to coach them through the process. Like, okay, I want you to pick up all the toy cars. This is the toy car box right over here. Toy cars have a box that they belong in. You pick up the toy cars, you put them in the box. That's the only thing I'm asking you to do. Don't worry about any of the rest of it. Don't worry about the toy dolls over there or the Legos over there or the giant case of toy cooking food stuff that's been like just completely thrown everywhere. Just worry about the toy cars. We'll start there and then we'll move on. And there's a lot of complaining, a lot of griping, a lot of I don't want to have to do this. Isn't this your job? Yes, I get a lot of isn't this your job? Um, that's the job. It's a job. You have to they're too young to just clean a room on their own. They're not quite there yet. So you have to sit there and you have to hold their hand through the process. I need to be more patient about that, but you have to be patient with it. It's a job. Like, and no, it's not particularly intellectually stimulating. Why do you think I'm making YouTube videos late at night after the kids are in bed? It's like I have got to do something to stimulate my brain or I will go absolutely nuts. But that doesn't mean that I'm not working all day. Like, do I cater to my husband? Yeah. I mean, in the midst of all the chaos, in the midst of all the craziness, um, I try to do nice things for him. I massage his back, I massage his feet, I bring him a cup of coffee in the morning. If all hell hasn't broken loose in the morning, because sometimes I wake up in the morning and one of the cats vomited on the floor and I need to clean that up. And one of the kids had a diaper blowout and I need to clean that up. And I probably need to get that kid into the shower in a hurry because pretty soon the other two kids are going to need to go to school and I have to make breakfast because, maybe I didn't make breakfast. Maybe I did make breakfast, but even if I did make breakfast, I'm sure there's something else I need to do. Um, no, I need to make sure that I take the lunches out of the refrigerator, put them in the lunch boxes along with the coolers to keep them cool, and get all of that into the backpack, and make sure that their water bottles are filled with water. Menial work, brainless work, yes. Important work, somebody has to do it. That's the bottom line. Did I dream about doing menial cleaning tasks when I was a little girl? Did I daydream about I'm going to spend years of my life scrubbing dried on tacky food out from underneath the dining room table because my kids can't be convinced to use a spoon and instead just scoop the food up with their hands half the time whenever I'm not looking. Um Nobody daydreams about that, okay? People daydream about becoming parents and they have these rosy ideas of what it's like to be parents, and the harsh realities set in, and you love your kids so you do it. But I wasn't even daydreaming about being a parent. I mean, I wanted a family. I didn't think I was necessarily going to get a family. But I found a husband, and he wanted to have kids and I wanted to have kids, and now I've got a family. And there's work that needs to be done. And I am kind of the best qualified to do it by nature of, certain biological factors and the fact that my husband earns more money than I do. And I mean, honestly, if you're being perfectly honest, when the baby first comes out and they're tiny and very, very vulnerable and cute and soft, oh my gosh, they're so soft. Like, I don't know about other women, but I find myself strongly instinctively driven to hold them and cuddle them and just never ever ever let them go. Like, I'll hold them for hours and hours, and they're happy with that, and they probably need that, honestly. Why would I switch jobs with somebody else? Yeah, you got to change their diapers, but you get to hold them and cuddle them and nurture them, and honestly, you got to breastfeed them too. Like, not everybody breastfeeds successfully. There's bottle feeding. I'm not judging people who can't breastfeed successfully. Like, things go wrong, I get it. But boy, is it convenient to have an automatic feeding system literally attached to your body. Like, it is really convenient. Like, you can just sit and hold them and cuddle them for hours and hours and hours, and that's what I want to do. So, it and I know there are women out there who don't get it, and it's like, okay, well, just imagine a really adorable puppy, and if you're not into dogs, imagine a really adorable kitten. You know, it's not the kind of career choice that people dream about, but you end up falling into it. And it's not infantilizing or catering to your husband's every needs. Usually it's infantilizing and catering to your infant's every needs. Um, which, you know, keeps you busy. I I think that that's something that people lose track of when they think about what a housewife is, what a housewife does. I think they think that the fantasy of being in a house and doing nothing but chores and makeup and nothing else really is the goal, the end goal. And some women do have that end goal, but most of us have other things to do with ourselves. The mothers that I know who are a little farther down the mom path, the mom journey than I am, all of their kids finally go to school, which I'm not there yet, and I'm not going to be for a while because of you. You took a long time to come this way. Um, I'm not there yet, but once all my kids are in school, I'm going to be in the same place they're in, and they all get jobs. You know, you can get a part-time job if your kids are in school. You can work while they're in school, and then you can still, pick them up from school, ask them how their day went, and be present in their lives, which is very important for their sense of security and well-being and all that wonderful stuff. If you can provide that for them, it's very important. And so, yeah, it's not the fantasy that people imagine on either side. Like it's just not. And it's messy and it's chaotic and it's actually kind of hard work. And it will keep you busy. Even if it's not physically hard work, it will keep you busy. And it can actually be very draining because you're taking care of other people who are very tiny and very demanding. And I understand that a lot of people are going to say, well, that's being a stay-at-home mom. That's not the same thing as being a housewife. It's like, how many people realistically are just housewives? I think I already mentioned it, but once again, the women who do like housewifing specifically and housewife lifestyle stuff, they have hobbies, and those hobbies can be very extensive. They have Etsy shops, and they make money in their Etsy shop. Anybody can have an Etsy shop. Having a lucrative Etsy shop is another matter entirely, and they're not idle. It's not mentally healthy to be idle. It's honestly not particularly mentally healthy to be just a housewife, unless there are a few people who can pull it off, but most human beings need more mental stimulation. We just do. But then again, give it a few years, have a couple kids. Being a housewife will keep you very busy. You'll be begging for a vacation. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Um, I think that people don't always have a realistic understanding of what it means to be a housewife. And so hopefully this has kind of given you guys a more realistic image. You're either a housewife and you're working on a lot of side projects, or you're a housewife and you're chasing after kids and it's exhausting. But either way, there's work involved in it, and it's not just the work of, oh la, I did a load of laundry today, and I painted my nails. No, it's real, honest to God work, like just endless work, thankless work. Yes. Do you dream of being a servant to small, tiny, demanding people who have no gratitude for the work you do and, doing all this thankless work? Well, that's really not the picture anyone has in their head when they decide they want to have kids. They're usually looking at the positive side of things before, before taking the plunge. The, oh my God, I'm going to have kids part of it. The thankless, mindless, menial tasks, they just kind of come along as part of the. I mean, every job has its less than pleasant facets, doesn't it? Anyway, I will talk to you guys later.